best advice?
We are in the enabling business, and that involves listening. It involves letting some of the pedigree go, some of the theory, putting it aside to really understand what work people do. It amazes me, Tom, in my 40 years at this to the last 20 or so, how little I knew about those I was trying to teach.
Welcome to the Rogue L&D Hot Shots podcast, a short podcast allowing you to meet some of the brilliant folk driving people performance and development forward in an informal and human way. My name's Tom Bailey, award-winning L&D leader and passionate maverick for all things development. Join me as I ask just 10 questions of some of the industry's most innovative and interesting people. Tell us about yourself.
Honored to be here. Hi, Bob Mosher. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Applied Synergies, but I've actually been in the space for 42 years this coming fall, and started out as a public school teacher, as we call it in the States. I have been in adult education and L&D for 35 of those 42 years. So that's my background.
What are you passionate about?
Well, it's a pivot to performance. I spent the first 20 years of my life living for training. Everything I did had someone in front of someone, or streaming through something, or e-learning base as we went to eventually, right? And lately, probably the ILT, we might call it. But what I learned 20 years ago when I was at a senior job role in a large tech company, and was confronted with the reality of how well my content enabled techs to be one, I realized that my job is not to educate or train. My job is to enable. And so my passion's all around performance, all around the workflow, all around, and if I can't, if what I produce doesn't enable that, then it's moot.
What's the best L&D you've seen?
It would have to be, we had a large services organization that we worked with once. Onboarding is such an abusive program in so many companies. I was helping a large airline redo their onboarding program. I was sitting with one of the HR SVPs, and he was actually sitting through his program finally. Maybe he did originally, but he said, we don't have an onboarding program here. We have an offboarding program. He goes, why? I sat through 3 days of this. I don't know why I would stay here. And so that, I think that's such an important program to do well, right? In exit interviews, a lot of people tell you that, you lost me at hello. I was a week or two into here and didn't know why. I never felt welcome here, or that I was empowered to belong here. So I think that one of the most powerful programs that I've been involved in was a redo of an 18-month-long onboarding program. Imagine 18 months, which, by the way, the attrition rate was 17 to 18 months in that group. What a surprise, right? And so they challenged themselves with not making it an event, but making it an experience. And what they learned through the work is that onboarding happens throughout an entire organization's career. When I get promoted, when I move to a new role, I'm onboarded to each one of those situations, right? New product comes out, I have to be onboarded to that. And so they moved from this institutional 3 to 4 week long thing to an evolutionary program that involved the manager embedding learning in the flow, these kinds of things. And they reduced the actual program from 18 to 3 months, but over time, to our point earlier, as far as impact went, they saw impact measures and performance measures over the next 6 to 12 to 18 to months beyond that go up exponentially, because they took an enablement view of instruction versus a school up view of instruction. And so that one was one I see it in a lot of programs, frankly, Tom, but I think that was the one I was most proud of, because the measures were, it was a billable hourly thing, so they'd done a lot of really wonderful KPI stuff and measures, and the degree to which it moved the dial. When I was in the early days of my work of doing this, and I did some ROI stuff with the Phillips group, if you know Patty and Jack, and they said, you got to be scared of like 300, 600% ROIs, because no business believes that. They don't see, but those were the numbers they saw, and that was really, really a remarkable, because to see the attrition go down, morale go up, performance excel, it was really a wonderful program.
Favorite hand gesture?
No, that's an easy one. It's actually "I love you" in sign language. My first 5 years were teaching third grade, and I was blessed to live in a city in the States that has the second largest deaf population in the world, and Deaf College in Rochester, New York, Rochester Institute for the Deaf. And as a third grade teacher, I was required to teach a second language, and I couldn't speak one to save my life. And so, because of where I lived, I said, "Look, can I teach Spanish? Nope. French? Nope. Not going to work. What if I did sign language?" And they said, "Yeah, in your area, it's more dominant than second largest language than English." And so we taught that to our 8-year-olds, and that hand gesture meant the world to me and my students, and some I'm still in touch with, actually.
One thing you didn't learn.
It's funny because I've always been a good communicator, but I never, until I went to university for teaching, I was never taught it, if that makes sense, right? And so I learned it through, I was blessed to live in a really, small town. My dad had a job that was very community centric, not political, but just very community centric. And so I talked a lot.
Proudest moment?
I think my proudest moment was when I stepped away from probably the best L&D job I ever had, and started my own company in doing this, which I'm a part of now, because it let me get out of the L&D box. And I'm not blaming L&D on that. I just kind of played into it and then felt very contained by it. And so my proudest moment was taking the risk to pivot away from corporate learning as a safer job, and then starting my own company now to do this performance pivot, and been very happy ever since, and the most proud of the work I've ever done.
Worst experience in L&D?
I'm gonna get really personal about this because it actually predates L&D like you would think, but it was really powerful in my L&D journey. When I finished my master's work in education here, I presented to a school board about my thesis and how to bring IT. This is back at the dawn of IT in education, both public and private. And my thesis has been around integrating public IT and desktops, Mac, Apple, back then, into classrooms. And I brought it, and I'd done all the research, I'd done the whole thing, and I brought it before the school board, and I, did my little thesis thing, and they looked at me like, wow, that's really interesting, and we'll get back to you. And then they came back shortly after and said, Bob, that was really brilliant, and the whole deal, and it's on our 5-year plan. Well, if anyone who says 5-year plan in education means they're not doing it, right? And I remember being just furious that they hadn't listened, and that they and what I learned, Tom, at that pivot it was a horrific failure. I ended up leaving that district, frankly. But what I learned was that we're in the services business, not the dictating business, right? And so I had tried to bring in my beliefs, my learnings, my research into a world that they didn't understand, and the horse bucked, right? And it was devastating to me emotionally, but it also didn't serve the district I was a part of at the time. And so I've learned ever since that we're in the listening, probing, questioning business, and sometimes we get a little wrapped up in our pedigree, to be honest, and I got slapped in the face for it.
Best celebrity moment?
Met really some remarkable people. Steve Wozniak, Bill Clinton. But my favorite that I ever met was Michelle Obama. She was the most genuine celebrity I've ever heard speak and then met after in my life. My wife and I were meeting her at a meet and greet after, and just so admired who she was as first lady of our country and other things. And then she was just so stunning in her presentation, just so endearing, so authentic, really, really smart, articulate, all these things. And so we walked up to her in this room with your stage and all this stuff, and we said, my wife and I walked up, and I leaned into her. I said, would the Secret Service mind if we gave you a hug? And expecting that she looks around and goes, let's see what happens. And she throws her arms around us, And it was just such a remarkable moment from somebody who could be as pretentious as she chose to be. And I met plenty others since who were, frankly, right? But it was, you might as well have been talking to your neighbor over a fence.
Something not many people know about you.
I think everyone in the States is a part of a band in college or university. And I was in one myself. Yeah, I mean, I have a real strong passion for golf. Is one thing that a lot of folks don't know about me. It's my happy place, if that's probably peaceful place is probably the better thing. I'm not great at it. Boy, there's no place on earth I'm happier or more removed from other parts of my life and things than that. So, that's I keep it kind of to myself, and for those reasons.
Best advice.
We are in the enabling business. And that involves listening. It involves letting some of the pedigree go, some of the theory, putting it aside to really understand what work people do. It amazes me, Tom, in my 40 years at this, till the last 20 or so, how little I knew about those I was trying to teach. Not the content that an SME thought they should know, but really what their work was that they then had to go back to and do. Right? So my advice would be enable performance first, train as little as you have to. That will challenge you as an L&D professional to look at what you do very differently. Try to create a solution that involves little to no training. You'll have to come at it in so many different ways to try to accomplish that. Then let's just make another course e-learning or something else.
Thank you to our guest and to you for listening. If you want to boost the impact of your organization's people development practices, I'd love to connect. You can find me at thomasbailey.co. Alternatively, you can look me up on LinkedIn.